What is going on, everybody, and welcome back in the studio. Now today in the studio I'm doing something a little bit different. We are working on the Magical Beast Niffler diorama still. However, I had a subscriber reach out to me and just ask me some general questions about, clear coats over dioramas, clays, and acrylic paints. Now, I gave them some just generic information just from the top of my head in the comment section of another video. But I told them that I would try to touch on this kind of topic as we move forward with some projects in the near future. So at this stage in the Niffler diorama, I'm at the point where I am ready to apply a clear coat. Now, you can apply a two-part epoxy clear coat. You could add a UV resin clear coat. You could, in this situation, we are going to use a spray paint. So we're going to give it a nice light spray paint. Now, just remember, depending on what you're covering depends on the practicality of what you need to use as far as a protective layer. Some items you don't need to use a protective layer on at all. But for instance, this is going to be out in the living room of our home where all the kiddos have their little sticky fingers always messing with stuff. And if they were to put their hands on it, something I don't want something that I can't wipe off easily with like a wet wipe or something like that, So and I also want it to be stout and durable to where it doesn't get damaged. So if they were to grab it on one of the toes or one of the little foam coins that we've created, it doesn't break right off the bat, right? So we're going to begin this process by giving it a spray paint layer. Now, if I were to do say a two-part epoxy layer of the whole thing, it would be a more thick layer. It would make it look super saturated, super wet, and I want to have the flocking on the outside have that nice, dry, crisp look. And if you do like a two-part epoxy, sometimes it really does take away from that. For instance, on this alien egg that I had created over here, I had put flocking on the outside edges, and you can see that the epoxy really covered it up and saturated it, and it takes away some of the details of that flocking. So we could also do UV resin. It's very similar. I usually use UV resin more sparingly here in the near future because I just feel like it's just an accent piece. So I'll go over the eyeballs with the UV resin just to get that nice thick layer. And then of course UV resin allows you to really control those layers. You can control the drips. You can control where you want it to dry, at what point during a drip you want it to dry, or if you don't want it on one portion or the other, you can just wipe it off before you cure it. There's a lot of versatility to that. A lot of UV resins do have like a little bit of a blue tinge to them under certain lights, so be aware of that. And then of course two-part epoxy can yellow. There's always that possibility. So here in the near future, I will try to use some UV resin and two-part epoxy for dioramas if I have something come up. However, today we're just going to use the Rust-Oleum spray paint. Now, just be aware that I do have some foam pieces. In previous videos, we had created these little foam coins out of XPS foam, and then we had painted those with a standard acrylics, gold metallics mostly. So just be aware that if you do go over any kind of XPF foam, then you need to be careful that that aerosol can doesn't erode that foam, and it can do so. So in what we have here, we're going to do this at the same time, same video, just a clear coat, Rust-Oleum clear coat video, and a brief description of the other two coverages. But as you can see here, I do have a just raw piece of XPS foam, and we will spray paint that outside as well. That way you can see how much it deteriorates. Hopefully my acrylic layers on some of these coins will last through the clear coat process. But I want to make sure that these little individual coins that I had created match the same overall coverage and texture layers as the ones that I've already built into the clay base before we get to the last stages of flocking. And that flocking video, everything from painting a little bit of rot, the fine particles, the medium, and even the thick flocking, building up that air dry clay base from creative paper clay, creating the rocks and all the little knickknacks and putting them into place, making sure that they have good distribution so it has like a nice treasure effect without it being too cluttered. So we'll go into all of that fun micro detail type of work. So for today, we're going to go outside, we're going to get some spray paint out, and we're going to give this a nice light base coat. I don't want the fur on the outside of the Niffler to be super like glazed and thick. So if you do spray paint on your layers, think about it as matte, satin, and glossy. If you can go with matte, I recommend it. But if you do want to have like a really shiny, like wet rock effect on the outside, then you need to go with a gloss or probably like a satin clear coat or something. I don't know what I have in the outside area right now as far as clear coats. We're just going to use what we have, but I'll kind of show you what we have when we get out there. So let's go ahead and carry all of this outside, and let's get some clear coats and lock in these acrylic details. So what I have in stock here, guys, is Rust-Oleum 2x coverage clear gloss, and we're mainly going to focus on the rocks and the Niffler, and then that's it. So I'm going to try to do this very thinly. Now what that's going to do is it's going to lock in all those little micro details, the existing flocking. I'm going to try to avoid the foam pieces because I did not put my my foam paint on thick enough to survive the aerosol process. So I'm going to be very sparingly around my coins. And maybe I'll give them a varnish layer instead inside. Put it on pretty thick right there. See how glossy that is? There's nothing wrong with that if that's the kind of look that I got out of it. And I'll just slowly go around, making sure I really didn't miss anything. If the kids are gonna grab it, it's probably gonna be around the hands or the toes or something like that. Or they'll be like rubbing the rocks, for instance. I'm going to come in, I'm going to give this part right here a good clear coat because that's where the coin base is going to be. What do you think, you guys? I think that color shifting paint from Folk Art looks really good. We'll let this dry off a little bit. And then just don't forget that we're gonna go over that with another layer of dirt, and it's gonna kind of bring up like the crispness and dryness of it a little bit. So we're not done with the flocking yet. Now, here, before we roll anything else, is the raw XPS foam. Let me show you real quick what this aerosol can do to it. I hope it doesn't blow it right off, I'll tell you what. Okay, so that was a little bit of a thicker piece right there. You see it? You see it slowly bubbling as that aerosol degasses on there. And make sure you have full coverage over that with your acrylics or Mod Podge or whatever you use over the foam. Now you can use the aerosol to give you a cool like textured effect, but you just need to use that sparingly. Cool, right? I told you guys that there was a disclaimer that you need to make sure that your acrylic paint or Mod Podge coverage over those foam pieces need to be thick enough to where the aerosol doesn't burn up or erode the styrofoam. I fell into that trap. So I did have a few coins that really just got melted into nothing. I could have sprayed a little bit too thickly on those, and I had a little bit of pooling of aerosol on there, and it just deteriorated the paint. It was just a little bit stronger than those water-based acrylics that I was using to detail paint these in. So instead of just destroying these coin stacks that I had created in the other video, I'm going to use a water-based varnish on these. I don't have it in the studio right now, but I did want to mention it just because, hey, when I make a mistake, I share that with you, and I learn from it too. I tried it out. It worked on a few of them. It just didn't work on all of them, so I just didn't have a very good high success rate. The ones that I already had on the diorama base, they're fine so far, and you'll see them in the highlight clip and the glamour shot of this video in just a moment. But just be aware that I'll make a return to these in the near future where I will varnish them. I may make a micro video of that, but it'll just be very simplistic. I have to get some more varnish, Liquitex water-based varnish for some paintings and things like that. So that will make a return into the channel here soon. Maybe I'll come back even after these are already attached to the diorama base, and I can just cover these in that water-based varnish whenever I get around to it. And because it's water-based, it's just very easy to use. It won't leave much residue. It'll be very clear, just like it would be on a painting. Otherwise, I think these little golden stacks turned out really good overall. And make sure you check out those videos. I did make them in a rough cut. I was really kind of sloppy with it, but I enjoyed the process, learned from my mistakes. But it is an actual cool piece of art because it is just more laid back, and it's got some clay slips built into it to where it's covering all the grooves and nooks and crannies, and it looks like one piece of I wouldn't say cartoon, but it's just a different look than you get when you just do individual coins cut to the same sizes, right? And then some of those have like little vertical indentions in them just to give some variation in texture. And then when I redid it, I actually made an air gap between the two stacks, and there will be some dirt and some flocking in there. So we'll get to that here soon. Make sure you check out the flocking video if you want to see me using any of the flocking, whether green or dirt or any of the large style flockings. And of course, we're going to add the rest of the treasures to the diorama as well in the next video. I'll probably include that in probably the flocking video, just because as we're adding stuff to the greenery, to the dirt, and to the top of the finishing stages of the overall diorama. There are going to be some surprises later on down the road in the separate videos of me adding some things to the diorama just to kind of increase the funness of it. So just be aware of that. It is from the Wizarding World, just as a spoiler alert. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, you can cover your dioramas in all sorts of different things. You can use aerosols, you can use UV resins, you can use two-part epoxy, but of course sometimes it's just easy, which I didn't mention in the very beginning of the video, just to use the water-based Liquitex varnish. Super easy just to wipe it on with a brush. Take any excess off that would puddle in like little divots or recesses, and you can just put thin layers on it until you get the desired protected effect. Now, again, make sure that your acrylics are always cured before you put any kind of clear coats on anything. If you do put a clear coat of something on a sticky or non-cured base, whether that be an aerosol base coat or a acrylic water-based paint, it can give you sticky effects on those layers, and then all that work you put into that piece of art can be ruined. There's a lot of variables that come into play when you're using clear coats on your dioramas and your art pieces. I would always recommend, if you're in a doubt, don't always rely on what people tell you. Try out a small sample size of what you're going to be working on with the varnish you have until you get good at it. There's no point in you spending 60 to 80 hours on a project and then it be ruined at the clear coat process, and then everything is just ruined because you can't sand it down because of all those details. For instance, in this, I hand detailed all of the fur pieces and the feather pieces in the Niffler body, and there's no way to get that clear coat off once it's on there, so it has to be absolutely perfect or it's all a wash. But I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something. If you didn't, hopefully I entertained you for about 15 minutes or so. I'll catch you guys in the next awesome video in this series, which will be the flocking video, which is pretty cool. Otherwise, guys, make sure you check out my homepage, subscribe, and like, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.